position, my friend. This is classic, like pro trader type of stuff. Everyone's talking about how, oh, I'm long equities, but I scalped around it this morning by selling NASDAQ futures and everything else. And I feel like it's one of those terms, Jermal, that like retail people or just everyday people who are starting to get into trading, they hear a term like scalping around a position and they're like, oh man, that's pro stuff. I can't do that. I don't even know what they're talking about. But it's actually pretty easy and accessible and actionable. And that's why I wanted to go through it today. Because I mean, maybe give an example of a position that you've scalped around in the past. Everything from your basic, like I'm long stocks and selling a call and then buying it back a week later to try to scalp around stocks being higher or what have you. When's a recent incident of you scalping around a position?
Oh, I mean, often oil or any, different other equity futures products. I mean, a couple of different things. So, always looking to. I mean, I think that's why this is most interesting. I think futures are one of the best things to use when you're looking to scalp a position, just because of the movement in them.
Yeah, futures are definitely the best way to pretty much scalp anything, but especially scalp around a position. And the basic idea is like, I've got, like, to your point, okay, so maybe Jermal is like long crude oil. He thinks that in the next course of several months, crude oil is going to rip to 130 because of geopolitical risk and everything else, whatever you want to say. And when you're looking to scalp around a position, maybe he's long crude oil from $100 and he's had the position on for a week or so. And the market now today is up 5%. And he's saying to himself, okay, this is still, in the middle of where I think it can go. But given that today is such a big day in that market, I'm going to short a futures contract with the intention of buying it back lower on a little reversion play, essentially taking off part of my position, but putting it back on fully after my scalp is through. You essentially have a core position. The market is moving in your direction or sometimes against you, and you're trying to commit essentially a smaller version of that trade using futures usually, but sometimes options or even equities as a short-term kind of going against that position to get your core position better prices at the end of the day. So let's talk about, something that I've had on, and I think you've had on in the past, but it's just for all intents and purposes, it's a core position whereby I'm long 30-year rates and I'm short 2-year rates, this being the pairs chart. I'm long this spread by being long 2 of the S30Y contracts, short 2 of the S2Y contracts. And on a day like yesterday, my core position is unchanged because both markets were down the same amount. And so with your core position being unchanged, but the markets having moved significantly lower, you're kind of like, it's this feeling of like, oh man, like everything's moving, but I got nothing moving in my P&L. And that's when you look to potentially scalp around, right?
Yeah, exactly. You try to find different ways of, I think you said it best earlier, trying to find different ways of sort of improving maybe your prices in those situations. And, it's funny too, like there are times where trying to scalp can get a little hairy, if you're a little worried about, oh my God, I took this one off and now what am I going to do? But just remain calm. Just remain calm. You'll get opportunities.
Yeah.
But that's one of the best things to do, to try and improve your prices.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about that. Yeah. The negative incident of like, oh, if the scalp doesn't go well, what do I do then? Because the idea is on a day like yesterday, I've got this spread on where I'm long 2 S30Ys, I'm short 2 S2Ys. The market as a whole is down pretty significantly. My position is relatively unchanged, but I want to do something. Like there's so much price action in the market. My position is unchanged, but I want to take action on the short-term price action that we're seeing. Well, you could have covered, and I did this, obviously didn't pin the low. And the example here is it's what it is. It's an example. You're never going to buy the low and sell the high, but you could have covered one of those 2 short S2Y futures near the low. There was plenty of price action, below where the market ended up closing. And then you could have sold it out at the close, making $100, Jermal, and then with that day trade, by the end of the day, I have the same position on, right? Like when you're scalping around, essentially what you're looking to do is make, $100 or whatever. And at the end of the day, have your same position on. But if it does go against you, you can either, take the small loss on that S2Y. And I bought it, when it was down $1.75. Now it's down 2.25. All right, I lost $50 trying to scalp around. But the idea is it's an outlier short-term move. Yep. And this market, should, according to probabilities, bounce back. And at the end of the day, I have my same core position, but I've made, $100 in the meantime on my S2Y position, right?
Yeah, and I think the key thing you said there was a short-term outlier move, and that's what made a lot more sense to attempt to try to make that trade during the day.
Yeah, exactly right. And just to kind of like to conclude it, you essentially have any core, like the simplest thing is like someone who has long equities, right? I've got long $10,000 worth of stocks in my brokerage account or what have you. The stock market either today or this week or this month is up an outlier degree, like really big day. Maybe I'll short a future. The market comes back a little bit and then I buy the future back. I'm back to my full core position, but I've scalped around that position in the meantime. Very practical stuff here on Tuesday afternoon. It's something that you and I probably do a lot without even noticing it, but I definitely wanted to bring to people's attention because we're getting a lot of big moves in the market, Jermal, but the market isn't necessarily going like interest rates in particular that we're talking about. The market hasn't gone anywhere. It's still in the same range, but big intraday moves that you want to scalp around on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, totally, man. And it's a great idea and a great trade. And I just hopefully you can maybe try and keep Eloy Jimenez a little more healthy and some of the other players on your team, as well as you do great trades and scalp. Let's try that.
Yeah, you don't want to be giving, essentially in baseball, scalping around the position is like the team's doing really good. We'll let Eloy take a couple weeks off with like a BS injury, but instead it's like off to a bad start and he's injured. Yeah, for the third. I hear you. All right, my friend. It's always great to have you on. Thanks so much for joining me. Make sure you check out Engineering the Trade and everything else Jermal does. He's a great trader, great personality here on the network. Also, great show coming up. Splash into Futures. You're going to want to stick around for that. I'll be back with more small stakes tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and have a great day of trading. Peace.